The rain was relentless that night, pounding the roof of our small Massachusetts home like it wanted to break through. I was 17, sprawled on the living room couch, half watching some mindless reality show, when I heard the creak of the back door. My heart stopped. Nobody was supposed to be home but me. I grabbed the nearest thing, a chipped ceramic mug, and crept toward the kitchen. The house was dark, save for the flickering TV light, and every shadow felt alive. I wasn't brave, not by a long shot, but I'd grown up in this creaky old place with my sister, Lily, and I knew its sounds. That creak wasn't the house settling. Someone was inside. Elliot. A voice whispered, low and urgent. I froze. It was Caleb, my sister's boyfriend, his silhouette barely visible in the dim light filtering through the kitchen window. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, soaked from the rain, and his eyes, those piercing green eyes, locked onto mine with a desperation I'd never seen before. Don't scream. Okay. It's just me. I lowered the mug, my pulse still hammering. What the hell? Caleb. Lily's not here. She's at her internship in Boston till tomorrow. My voice came out sharper than I meant, but something about him being here, unannounced, felt wrong. Dangerous. Even. I know, he said, stepping closer. His jacket dripped onto the linoleum, and I noticed his hands were trembling. I didn't come for her. I came for you, Noah. My stomach twisted. Caleb had been dating Lily for 6 months, the perfect golden couple of Westbridge High. He was the charming quarterback, all easy smiles and effortless confidence, while Lily was the cheerleader with a laugh that could light up a room. Me. I was just her quiet, artsy younger brother, the one who spent too much time sketching in notebooks and avoiding eye contact. Caleb and I barely talked, except for the occasional awkward nod when he picked Lily up for dates. So why was he here, looking at me like I was the only person in the world? I don't get it, I said, backing up until my hip hit the counter. What do you want? He ran a hand through his wet hair, his breath shaky. I can't keep pretending, Noah. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't anymore. I'm not who everyone thinks I am. I'm not straight. The words hung in the air, heavy and electric. I stared at him, my brain scrambling to process what he'd just said. Caleb, the guy who had half the school swooning, was standing in my kitchen, confessing something that could unravel everything. And he was confessing it to me. I know this is a lot, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. But I've seen the way you look at me. I know you feel it too. Heat rushed to my face. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong, but I couldn't. I'd spent months shoving down the way my chest tightened whenever he was around, the way my eyes lingered on him a little too long. I'd told myself it was nothing, just a stupid crush on my sister's boyfriend. But now, with him standing there, vulnerable and raw, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Caleb, you can't just, I started. But he cut me off, stepping closer. Too close. Please. Noah. I'm drowning. I've been hiding this my whole life, and I can't do it anymore. Not with you. His voice cracked, and I saw the fear in his eyes, the kind that comes from carrying a secret too heavy for one person to bear. I didn't know what to say. My head was screaming at me to push him away, to tell him to leave. But my heart was racing for an entirely different reason. Before I could decide, he reached out, his fingers brushing mine, and it was like a spark igniting something I'd buried deep. I didn't pull away. That night, We talked. Not just about him, but about me too. About how I'd known I was gay since I was 13, but never told anyone. Not even Lily. About how growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone made it feel like coming out would be signing my own exile. Caleb listened. Really listened. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. But with every word, every glance, the weight of what we were doing grew heavier. He was still Lily's boyfriend, and I was still her brother. By the time he left, the rain had stopped, but the storm inside me was just beginning. I didn't sleep that night, replaying every word, every touch. Caleb had cracked open a door I wasn't sure I could close again. But what scared me most wasn't the attraction, it was the betrayal. Lily deserved better. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The next day, Lily came home, all smiles and stories about her internship. I watched her move through the house, oblivious to the secret I was now carrying. Caleb texted me that afternoon. Just 3 words. I meant it. My heart leapt, but guilt clawed at me just as fiercely. This wasn't just about me and Caleb. This was about Lily. About family. About the kind of person I wanted to be. I didn't know it then, but that night was only the beginning. What Caleb did next, what we did, would change everything, leaving scars that still ache years later. But in that moment, all I knew was that I was standing on the edge of something dangerous, something that could either save me or destroy us all. The days after Caleb's confession felt like walking a tightrope. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, expecting his name on the screen. And when it was him, short, cautious texts like, "Can we talk?" Or, "I can't stop thinking about you," I'd stare at the words until my vision blurred, torn between replying and deleting them. Lily noticed something was off. "You okay, Noah?" she asked one morning over breakfast. Her brow furrowed as she stirred her coffee. "You've been weirdly quiet lately." I forced a smile, mumbling something about school stress. But her eyes lingered on me, sharp and searching. Lily had always been able to read me, like I was one of her sketchbooks. Every emotion laid bare. Lying to her felt like carving out a piece of myself. Caleb and I started meeting in secret. Never at the house again, that was too risky, but in places where no one would look twice. The old pier at Lakeview Park, abandoned after the summer crowds left. The back corner of the library, where dusty history books hid us from prying eyes. Each time, we'd talk for hours, our words spilling out like we'd been starving for someone to hear them. He told me about growing up in a house where his dad's idea of masculinity was a fist and a Bible verse. I told him about the sketches I hid under my bed, drawings of boys I'd never dare show anyone. It was like we were building a world just for us. Fragile but real. But the guilt was a constant shadow. Every time I saw Lily and Caleb together, his arm around her at school, her head on his shoulder during movie nights, I felt like a traitor. She didn't deserve this. She was the one who defended me when kids at school called me artsy freak in middle school. The one who'd stayed up late helping me finish projects. And here I was, falling for her boyfriend. One night, at the pier, Caleb kissed me. It wasn't planned. Wasn't even something we talked about. We were sitting on the edge, our feet dangling over the dark water, when he turned to me, his eyes fierce with something I couldn't name. Before I could think, his lips were on mine, soft and urgent, like he was afraid I'd vanish. I kissed him back, my hands trembling as they found his jacket, pulling him closer. For a moment, nothing else existed. No Lily, no secrets, no consequences, just us. But reality crashed back fast. "We can't keep doing this," I said, pulling away, my voice shaky. "Lily's my sister. This is wrong. Caleb's face crumpled. I know. God. I know. But I've never felt like this before. Noah. Not with her. Not with anyone. I'm in love with you. The words hit like a punch. Love. It was too big. Too dangerous. I wanted to say it back. To tell him I felt the same. But the image of Lily's trusting smile stopped me. You need to break up with her, I said instead. If this is real, you can't keep pretending with her. He nodded, but there was fear in his eyes. I will. I just need time. My dad, my team will lose it if they find out. You don't know what it's like. Noah, living in their world. I did know. At least a little. Westbridge wasn't exactly a haven for people like us. I'd heard the slurs tossed around at school. Seen the way some teachers looked the other way when kids got bullied. But I also knew we couldn't keep sneaking around. It wasn't just about getting caught, it was about what this was doing to me. To Lily. To all of us. The next week was torture. Caleb didn't break up with Lily. He said he was waiting for the right moment. But I saw the way he still held her hand. Still laughed at her jokes. It felt like a betrayal. Not just of her, but of me too. I started avoiding him. Ignoring his texts. But that only made the ache worse. I was falling for him. Hard. And every day I didn't tell Lily the truth felt like another lie piling up. Then, one evening, everything unraveled. I was in my room, sketching to drown out my thoughts, when Lily burst in, her face streaked with tears. Noah, I need to talk to you, she said, her voice breaking. My stomach dropped. Had she found out? Did she know about Caleb and me? It's Caleb, she said, sitting on my bed, clutching a pillow. He's been acting so weird. Distant. I think he's cheating on me. My heart stopped. I wanted to tell her everything. To confess and beg for forgiveness. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just sat there, silent, as my sister cried, her pain cutting me deeper than any knife could. Lily's tears were a weight I couldn't shake. That night, as she sobbed into my shoulder, I felt like the worst person alive. I wanted to tell her the truth about Caleb, about me, about everything, but fear clamped my mouth shut. What if she hated me? What if I lost her forever? The next day, I confronted Caleb at school, cornering him behind the gym where no one would see. You need to tell her, I said, my voice low but sharp. She thinks you're cheating, and she's falling apart. This can't go on. He looked wrecked, dark circles under his eyes, his usual confidence gone. I'm trying. Noah. I swear. But my dad's been on my case. And the team's got playoffs coming up. If I come out now, it'll ruin everything. Ruin everything for you. I snapped. What about Lily? What about me? He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm going to tell her. Tonight. I promise. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. That evening, I stayed in my room, sketching furiously to keep my mind off the ticking clock. Around 8, my phone buzzed. Caleb, I'm coming over. I told her. My heart raced relief. Fear. Hope. All tangled together. But when I heard the front door slam and Lily's voice, high and angry, I knew something was wrong. I crept downstairs, my pulse pounding. Lily was in the living room, pacing, her face red. Caleb stood by the couch, his hands raised like he was trying to calm her. You're lying, She shouted. You're making this up to hurt me. I'm not lying. Lily, Caleb said, his voice steady but strained. I'm gay. I've been trying to figure this out for years. And I can't keep pretending. Lily froze, her eyes darting to me as I stepped into the room. Noah, did you know about this? Her voice was sharp, accusing, and I felt like I'd been caught in a trap. My throat closed up. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. Yeah. I found out a few weeks ago. Her face crumpled, betrayal written all over it. And you didn't tell me. My own brother. She turned back to Caleb, her voice rising. So what? You've been using me as a cover. Was any of it real? It was real, Caleb said, his eyes pleading. I cared about you. Lily. I still do. But I can't be someone I'm not. She laughed. A bitter, broken sound. And what about you? Noah. Were you in on this? Laughing behind my back. No. I said, stepping forward. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't ask for it. But she wasn't listening. She grabbed her jacket and stormed out, the door slamming so hard the walls shook. Caleb and I stood there, the silence deafening. I'm sorry, he said finally, his voice barely audible. I didn't mean for it to go like this. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he'd ruined everything. But the look in his eyes stopped me. He was hurting too, maybe as much as Lily. Just go, I said, my voice flat. I need to fix this. He left, and I spent the night trying to reach Lily. She didn't answer my calls, didn't respond to my texts. When she finally came home at dawn, her eyes were puffy, her face closed off. I don't want to talk about it, she said, brushing past me to her room. The next few days were a nightmare. Lily barely spoke to me, and when she did, her words were clipped, cold. Caleb kept his distance, but I could feel his presence everywhere at school, in my thoughts, in the ache I couldn't shake. I hated myself for wanting him, for letting this happen, but I couldn't undo it. Then, a week later, something shifted. Lily came into my room one night, her expression softer but still guarded. I talked to Caleb, she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. He told me everything. About him. About you. My heart stopped. What do you mean? He told me you two have feelings for each other. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt beneath it. Is it true? I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't mean to hurt you, Lily. I swear. She looked away, her jaw tight. I know, but it still hurts. She paused, then met my eyes. I don't hate you, Noah. I just need time. Time. It was all any of us needed, but it felt like a luxury we didn't have. The secret was out, but the fallout was just beginning. Time didn't heal things as cleanly as I'd hoped. Lily and I tiptoed around each other, our house a minefield of unspoken words. She wasn't angry in Amori at least. Not openly, but the distance between us was worse than any fight. I missed her laugh, her teasing, the way we used to stay up late talking about nothing. Now, every conversation felt like a test I was failing. Caleb and I weren't much better. We met in secret again, but it wasn't the same. The thrill of those early nights was gone, replaced by a heavy awareness of what we'd done. I'm trying to make this right, he told me one evening at the pier, his voice low. I came out to my mom. She didn't take it well, but it's a start. I wanted to be proud of him, but all I could think about was Lily. What about your dad? I asked. Your team. He looked away, his jaw tight. I'm not ready for that yet. You don't know what he's like. Noah. He'd kill me. I didn't push him. I knew what it was like to be afraid. To feel like the world would turn on you if you showed who you really were. But I also knew we couldn't keep living in this limbo. We need to figure this out. I said. For Lily. For us. He nodded. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. Coming out in Westbridge wasn't just a personal choice, it was a declaration. One that could cost you friends. Family. Everything. I wasn't out either. Not really. Only Caleb and now Lily knew. The thought of telling anyone else made my stomach churn. At school, things got worse. Rumors started swirling, whispers about Caleb acting off. About him and Lily breaking up. I heard the word fag tossed around in the locker room. Casual but sharp. Like a blade. Caleb played it off, laughing with his teammates. But I saw the way his shoulders tensed. The way his eyes flicked to me when he thought no one was looking. One day, it came to a head. I was leaving art class when I saw Caleb cornered by two guys from the football team. Their voices low and menacing. What's going on with you? Man. One of them, Jake, said. You bailing on Lily for some queer shit? Caleb's face went pale, but he stood his ground. Back off. Jake. You don't know what you're talking about. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Leave him alone, I said, my voice louder than I meant. Jake turned, his eyes narrowing as he sized me up. What's this? Your little boyfriend stepping in. He sneered. The hallway went quiet. Kids stopping to watch. I felt exposed. Like every secret I'd ever had was written on my face. Caleb shoved Jake back. Hard. I said back off. His voice was steady, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Jake laughed, but he and his friend walked away, muttering under their breath. That night, Caleb showed up at my window, his face bruised. My dad, he said when I let him in, his voice hollow. He heard about the fight. He thinks I'm, you know. I didn't know what to say. I cleaned the cut on his cheek, my hand shaking. You can't go back there, I said. Not if he's hurting you. Where am I supposed to go? He asked, his eyes searching mine. I don't have anyone else. Noah. You have me, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. And I meant it. Despite everything, Lily, the rumors, the fear, I couldn't let him go. We stayed up all night, talking, planning. He'd stay with a cousin in Boston for a while, get some space from his dad. I'd talk to Lily, try to rebuild what we'd broken. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As he left at dawn, he kissed me, soft and desperate, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could make this work. But hope is fragile. A week later, I found a note in my locker, scrawled in angry red ink. Fags don't belong here. My stomach dropped. Someone new. And in a town like Westbridge, that was enough to set everything on fire. The note burned a hole in my pocket all day. I didn't tell Caleb. I didn't want to scare him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. At school, eyes followed me in the halls, whispers trailing like smoke. I kept my head down, focusing on my sketches, but the weight of that red ink lingered. Lily was starting to come around. Slowly. One night, she sat me down in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. I don't hate you, Noah, she said, Her voice quiet. I feel like I lost both of you. My boyfriend and my brother. I'm still here, I said, my throat tight. I never wanted to hurt you. She nodded, her eyes glistening. I know. And I'm trying to understand. It's just hard. You know. Finding out the two people I love most were keeping this from me. Her words hit hard. Love. She still loved me. Even after everything. I reached for her hand. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't pull away. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a step. Caleb, meanwhile, was unraveling. Staying with his cousin wasn't the escape he'd hoped for. His dad kept calling, leaving voicemails that swung between rage and cold silence. I can't keep running, he told me one night on the phone, his voice raw. I need to face this. Then let me help you, I said. We'll figure it out together. The next day, he showed up at school, his jaw set, his eyes determined. I'm telling the team, he said, pulling me aside during lunch. Today, I'm done hiding. My heart sank. Caleb, are you sure? They're not exactly open-minded. I know, he said, his voice steady. But I can't live like this anymore. I want to be with you, Noah. Out in the open. I wanted that too. More than anything. But fear clawed at me. Westbridge wasn't ready for this. We weren't ready for this. But before I could argue, he was gone, heading toward the locker room where the team was meeting. I waited outside, my stomach in knots. When he came out, his face was pale, his hands shaking. They didn't take it well, he said, his voice flat. Jake called me a traitor. Said I was letting the team down. I reached for him, but he stepped back, his eyes distant. I need some time. Noah. This is a lot. I watched him walk away, feeling like I'd lost something I couldn't name. That night, I found another note in my locker. You're next. The words were scrawled in the same red ink. And this time, there was a crude drawing of two stick figures, one with a noose around its neck. I didn't sleep. I couldn't tell Kalebi was already breaking under the pressure. I couldn't tell Lily she was just starting to trust me again. So I kept it to myself, the fear growing like a weed. But secrets have a way of spilling out. The next day, Caleb didn't show up at school. I texted him, called him, but he didn't answer. Panic set in. By afternoon, I was at his cousin's place in Boston, banging on the door. His cousin, a tired-looking guy in his 20s. Let me in. He's gone, he said. Left this morning. Said he needed to clear his head. I felt like I'd been punched. Did he say where? The cousin shook his head. Just left a note. Said he'd be back when he was ready. I drove home, my mind racing. Caleb was out there, alone, and I had no idea where. Worse, the notes were getting bolder. That night, I found another one taped to my window, leave town or else. The red ink was starting to feel like blood. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. All I knew was that Caleb was gone. Lily was barely holding on, and I was running out of time to fix the mess we'd made. Caleb's absence was a void I couldn't fill. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping for a text, a call, anything. Nothing came. The notes kept coming. Those slipped into my locker, stuffed in my backpack, each one more threatening than the last. You can't hide forever. We know what you are. The red ink was a constant reminder that someone was watching. Waiting. I told Lily about the notes. I didn't want to drag her back into this mess. But I was scared. And she was the only one I trusted. Her face hardened as she read them. Her fingers tracing the angry scrawl. "This is serious. Noah," she said, her voice low. "We need to tell someone. Mom. The school. The police, someone." But I couldn't. Not yet. Telling meant coming out. Meant exposing Caleb. Meant risking everything. "I need to find him first," I said. "He's out there. Lily. He's alone." She didn't argue, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "Just be careful. Okay. I can't lose you too." I spent the next few days searching. I called his friends, his cousin, even his mom, who hung up on me the second I mentioned his name. I drove to every place we'd ever gone: the pier, the library, the coffee shop where we'd once shared a milkshake, laughing like we didn't have a care in the world. No trace of him. Then, on the third day, I got a text from an unknown number: "Meet me at the pier. Midnight. Come alone." My heart leapt. It had to be Caleb. I didn't think twice. I grabbed my jacket and slipped out. The house quiet as Lily slept. The pier was deserted. The lake black and still under the moonlight. I waited, my breath visible in the cold air, until I heard footsteps. But it wasn't Caleb. It was Jake, the football player, with two other guys from the team. Their faces were hard, their eyes glinting with something dangerous. "Looking for your boyfriend," Jake sneered, stepping closer. "He's gone. Freak. And you're next." I backed up, my heart pounding. "I don't want trouble," I said, my voice shaking. "Just leave me alone." Jake laughed. A cold, cruel sound. "You and your queer buddy thought you could just waltz around like it's normal. This is our town." One of the guys grabbed my arm, twisting it hard. I yelped, trying to pull free. But Jake was in my face now, his breath hot and sour. "You're gonna wish you never met him." Before I could react, a voice cut through the darkness. "Let him go." It was Caleb, stepping out from the shadows, his face bruised but fierce. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes rumpled, but there was a fire in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Jake turned, his smirk fading. "You've got some nerve showing up here, traitor." Caleb didn't flinch. "I'm done running. You want to come at me? Fine. But leave Noah out of it." The air was thick with tension, the three of them circling us like wolves. I thought it was over, that we were done for. But then Caleb stepped forward, his fists clenched. "I'm not ashamed of who I am," he said, his voice steady. "Not anymore." Jake lunged, but Caleb was faster, dodging and landing a punch that sent Jake stumbling. The other two hesitated, thrown off by Caleb's defiance. "Go," Caleb whispered to me, his eyes locked on them. "Get out of here." I didn't want to leave him, but I ran, my legs burning as I sprinted to my car. I called the police, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. By the time they arrived, Jake and his friends were gone, and Caleb was sitting on the pier, bloodied but alive. He looked at me, his eyes soft. "I'm sorry I left," he said. "I was scared. But I'm here now." I wanted to hug him, to tell him I loved him. But the police were asking questions, and the night was far from over. We were safe, for now, but the fight was just beginning. The police took our statements. their flashlights cutting through the dark as they searched the pier for evidence. Caleb and I sat in the back of a cruiser, blankets draped over our shoulders, the adrenaline still buzzing in my veins. He reached for my hand, squeezing it briefly before letting go. It was the first time we'd touched in public, and it felt like a small, quiet rebellion. They let us go with a warning to stay out of trouble, but trouble was already everywhere. By morning, the story had spread through Westbridge like wildfire. Caleb, the star quarterback, was gay. I was his accomplice, his boyfriend, according to the whispers. Kids stared in the halls. Teachers avoided my eyes, and my phone buzzed with anonymous texts. Freak. Disgusting. Leave. Lily was waiting for me when I got home, her face pale. I heard what happened, she said, pulling me into a hug. Are you okay? I nodded, but I wasn't okay. Not really. They could have killed him. Lily. If I hadn't called the police. She didn't let me finish. You did the right thing. And I'm proud of you. Her voice cracked, and I realized she was crying. I'm sorry I was so mad. I didn't know how to handle this. I didn't either. I admitted. I still don't. We talked for hours. The kind of raw, honest conversation we hadn't had in months. She told me she'd been researching, trying to understand what it meant to be an ally. I want to support you, she said. Both of you. But you need to be honest with me from now on. I promised I would. It was a start, a fragile bridge between us. But it was enough for now. Caleb wasn't so lucky. His dad kicked him out, and his teammates shunned him. He moved in with his cousin permanently, but the toll was visible. His shoulders slumped. His smiles rare. I wanted to fix it, to take away his pain, but all I could do was be there. We decided to come out together, to stop hiding. It wasn't easy. At school, we faced glares, slurs, even a few shoves in the halls. But we also found a LSME art teacher who started a GSA club, a few kids from the drama club who invited us to hang out, even Lily, who stood by us, fierce and unwavering. One day, we found a new note in my locker, but this one was different. Written in blue ink, it said, "You're not alone." No name, no explanation, but it gave me hope. Maybe Westbridge wasn't as hopeless as I'd thought. Caleb and I grew closer. Our relationship no longer a secret, but a quiet defiance. We held hands in the park, kissed in the library, dared to exist as ourselves. It wasn't perfect. His dad still wouldn't speak to him, and my mom was struggling to understand, but it was ours. As graduation approached, we started planning for the future. College, a new city, a place where we could be free. But the past wasn't done with us. Jake and his friends were still out there, and the notes hadn't stopped completely. We'd won a battle, but the war was far from over. Still, for the first time, I felt like we could win. Not just for us, but for everyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. Caleb and I were building something stronger than fear, something worth fighting for. Graduation day was bright and warm, the kind of New England spring that made everything feel possible. Caleb and I stood together in our caps and gowns, our hands brushing as we waited for our names to be called. Lily was in the stands, cheering louder than anyone, her smile a beacon of everything we'd fought to keep. The past few months hadn't been easy. Jake and his crew backed off after the pier incident, but the whispers never stopped. We'd learned to ignore them, to focus on the people who mattered. Lily, our small circle of friends, the teachers who'd stood up for us. Caleb's cousin became his new family, and my mom was slowly coming around, asking questions, trying to understand. We'd faced the worst and come out stronger. Caleb got a scholarship to a college in Boston, and I was headed to an art school nearby. We'd be together, building a life where we didn't have to hide. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still nights when Caleb woke up from nightmares about his dad. Still days when I wondered if I'd ever feel safe in my own skin. But we had each other, and that was enough. The final note came a week before we left for college. It was slipped under our front door, written in familiar blue ink, "Keep shining." Inside was a photo of us at the pier, taken from a distance, two boys sitting close, unafraid. Someone had seen us, not with hate, but with hope. That night, Caleb and I went back to the pier, the place where it all began. The water was calm, the stars bright overhead. "I never thought I'd get here," he said, his voice soft. "With you, out in the open." "Me neither," I said, leaning against him. "But I'm glad we did." He kissed me, slow and sure, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of who might see. What Caleb did that night, sneaking into my life, still haunts minute with pain, but with gratitude. He broke down my walls, showed me what it meant to be brave, to love without shame. And in the end, we didn't just survive, we lived. Lily joined us at the pier, her laughter echoing as she splashed water at us. We were a family again, scarred but whole. The world wasn't perfect, and neither were we. But we'd found something worth fighting for, the right to be ourselves, to love without fear, to build a future where no one had to hide. As we stood there, the three of us, I realized that this was the real victory, not just coming out, but coming together. The scars would always be there, but so would the love. And that was enough.